Welcome back to an episode of Spectator Mode. As always, I'm Neil Strebig. With me, of course, is Donald Double D DeCray. So today we got a couple interesting couple we got a six pack of items to go through pretty quick today. A good mix of game, pop culture. I honestly like the one we're gonna end on, but without delay, kind of jump into the rundown a bit. We're gonna talk a little James Gunn, where he stands with Guardians of the Galaxy, his new endeavor with the DC universe. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars again, this time in the gaming world. A couple new titles in the works already there. Some more Blizzard news. Surprise, surprise. Union busting this time, not mega blockbuster deals.
Oh, yeah.
There's a new Pokemon game out. Not sure if y'all heard about that, but we'll dive into that for a little bit. We got some esports movement, actual kind of purchasing mergers, some big news there as far as who owns who. And then bringing it back around to Lord Disney, the new Sith Lord in town, and Minnie Mouse's new outfit.
New Sith Lord?
I'm going to refer to Walt Disney from now on.
I don't think there's anything new about them being Sith, but I think that's, yeah, sure. That's where we're going to end. But kicking things off, we do have Guardians of the Galaxy has been confirmed to be James Gunn's last outing as the director for the Guardians. And in fact, he even went so far as to say that this would be the last time we would be seeing this incarnation of the Guardians. So we're expecting, if they continue the franchise, which they probably will, we're going to see new characters inheriting the title, which will be interesting because we haven't seen that happen yet in the cinematic universe of like either characters or teams changing members, inheriting new titles. I think this is all expected, but it hasn't been confirmed until now that that's going on. And we know Adam Warlock is a character that's going to be coming up in the new one. So some good things to look forward to there. And James Gunn's attention is going to be instead dedicated to his Peacemaker series on HBO Max, which is obviously his DC spinoff of Suicide Squad, which he only got involved in because he got temporarily fired from Guardians of the Galaxy. And he took Suicide Squad as his project when he was taken off Guardians. So I mean, good things for James Gunn, I guess, and I look forward to seeing maybe what they do with the Guardians and how they shake that up.
Yeah, I mean, he's well liked in the nerd community. I'm not his biggest fan or supporter. I mean, as far as I'm not a fan of cancel culture either, but I do think James Gunn's maybe one that maybe shouldn't be working in Hollywood anymore. This is my take, but
wow, that's harsh.
The people that like work with them, they seem to like him. He doesn't do as much fan service as Bryan Singer with the X-Men movies. I think he does a nice blend of getting new fans hooked in with the movies, making them fun rides. We saw the new Suicide Squad. Of course, we saw that with Guardians. Even though Guardians 2, I think, was a little bit of a letdown, especially with timing of that and how it kind of mixed in the MCU.
That's interesting. You
was
say
much
that.
more of a standalone fun film, and I think that's kind of how all his stuff is. I mean, even Peacemaker's kind of thing. I think I don't want to be harsh and say he's a one trick pony, but in a way he kind of is, because it's like, okay, you have one or two fun rides, and how far can you really take that then?
I mean, and I don't know if that's wrong per se, because like even James Gunn, I think, has voiced concern because he's quoted as saying that third films in trilogies, most trilogies suck. You know, he's hoping that's not going to be the case, obviously, with his ending of Guardians here. And kind of like what he said in interviews and stuff like that, he's going for like a very dark tone. He's definitely looking at bringing storylines to a close for the most part for the current Guardians and stuff like that. So I think he kind of has a lot to accomplish. I don't know if I feel like he can really bring a very dark tone to things, because everything with him feels very tongue-in-cheek in general, which I think worked for like Star-Lord and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But I'm not convinced that he can pull off what he's describing as his goal. So I guess it'll be interesting to see where the DC stuff goes as well for him, because like DC I think has been struggling as well.
Yeah, I think it's at least DC for him with the violence and the humor. He does do a good job with that. I think it's a better fit for him. But I think with the James Gunn bit too, it's one of those things where Disney clearly went for the money and the safe bet rather than sticking to the morality guns, which we've seen quite a bit, which I think is a bit funny. And again, I'm a big critique of MCU and Disney basically being not exactly the social justice cars they pretend to be.
Well, I guess we'll get back around to that in a minute. What else you got for me?
Respawn is announced they're working on 3 Star Wars games. News came out earlier this week. For all that don't know, Respawn does do the Battle Royale Apex Legends, but in the mix is supposed to be a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think that's the last big Star Wars title that came out. Battlefront 2 a little bit before that, which was a huge letdown. And then, of course, Knights of the Old Republic was remastered, re-released on the Switch, and I think maybe no, was it just on the Switch? If I'm not mistaken, it might be a PC port. I don't know if it's on a PS4, Xbox One. But either way, 3 new Star Wars games in the works, including the sequel. Pretty big news. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that we're getting more Star Wars games. I think Star Wars video games in particular have been very hit or miss in terms of there's such a idea, I think, in people's heads of what a Star Wars game should be like with lightsaber battles and everything else going off. And some games do a decent job delivering on that, and some games really miss the mark, and they end up feeling like games that just have a Star Wars skin or like veneer painted over them, so to speak, as the backdrop, right? Where they're capitalizing on the name more than anything else rather than giving us like an actual Star Wars game. Now, Respawn has had success with Apex Legends. I think they've done well recently, so I think there's a lot to hope for. At the same time, you know, the troubled history of Star Wars games makes me cautiously optimistic. I think signs point to being good things all around. The fact they're tackling 3 at a time, I'm not so sure about, but you know, I think I will let myself hope for the best in this case.
I mean, I think even if 1 out of 3, even if a Fallen Order sequel is, say, 3/4 of as good as the first, I think that's a win. I mean, if they do have a Battle Royale mix, which is very possible. I mean, I just got an Apex Legends. I enjoy it quite a bit. First Battle Royale. I mean, I like it a hell of a lot better than Fortnite. It makes a lot more sense. But I think just from the sheer volume of characters it could mix in a Battle Royale with Star Wars, I think I would make it for the Battlefront mistake. And I'm sorry, Star Wars Squadrons was the last Star Wars game, which honestly I loved. EA Sports killed that. As far as, you know, the Starship battles, Star Wars, because I think it's kind of, Star Wars is 3 universes, right? It's, you know, the prequel, the spaceships, and you know, star battles. Okay. So you got, you know, X-wings, TIE fighters, the Jedi then assist. So you got lightsaber battles, and then you have basically the space cowboy nonsense, which is, you know, Boba Fett, Han Solo. Which I shouldn't say nonsense because that's a super exciting part as well. But it's the bounty hunters and the smugglers, and it's the corrupt kind of. Yeah,
I mean, it's the Wild West in space is what it is. You're right.
Exactly. So I mean, those are the 3 kind of sectors. So those are 3 good portions to get any sort of games out of. Whether it's Battle Royale, whether it's a starfighter like Star Wars Squadrons, which I wish they would have added more DLC to that, because that game is so much fun. I think they shot themselves.
Talk about it. You've said good
coming
things.
Out of it and saying like this is all it's going to be, and fans didn't really jump to it. But again, starfighters are kind of a very niche gaming, and they've kind of been kind of dead for a while, I think, though, too. I mean, talk about 90s PC, early 2000s really kind of died, you know?
I guess so.
No, I mean, I'm excited. And we get a Boba Fett game or something. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I mean, I'd love more Boba in my life. Yeah. Whatever. We could talk about Mandalorian too at some point because I'm finally watching those. But speaking of video games and video game companies, in other news, we've got the QA department at Activision Blizzard tried to unionize. And so they just asked Blizzard to voluntarily recognize them, which is the easiest way to go about this, avoiding the votes and everything else. And Blizzard, for their part, was like, no, we're not going to do that. And so they turned around and they've started this thing where they're basically embedding QA analysts in separate departments and teams, which is like a legitimate business model from what I'm researching. I don't know this for a fact. I don't have experience in the industry, but apparently this is like a thing that's been done in other times, other places, and is, you know, not bad by itself, but the timing seems suspicious because it's literally right after they asked to unionize that they're going through this restructure. So I don't know. Do you think that this is a play to not let them unionize?
I mean, it's definitely a play not to let them unionize. I mean, talking about just
in your mind, clear cut is that just definitely not. There's no.
Well, I mean, we've seen it across the board, and not just in, you know, Activision Blizzard and gaming. There's been a lot of union busting going around. I mean, my profession, journalism, there's a lot of newsrooms that have been trying to get unions, and you know, we're seeing some grounds met with that, but you're talking about General Mills and everything else too. I mean, there's a bunch of industries that are trying to unionize, and I met with resistance. So I think from a cultural and socioeconomic standpoint, that's nothing new. It's new in the sense of we haven't seen as much coverage and serious coverage in video game industry, but on the verge of the mega deal at Microsoft, I mean, I think it's still a black eye, and it makes you wonder then too, where's this going to go? I mean, it's still a good acquisition for Microsoft, but it's still very much, we talked about last episode, is a bit of, PR from Activision Blizzard's point of view to kind of hand over the mess to somebody else, and they can kind of chug along and, do some impasses with the unions and see where it goes until this is basically completely in Microsoft's hands, which I think we're going to see. What that unfortunately leaves for everybody else that's involved, with the testers and actual workers, is they're going to be in relatively shitty work scenarios for quite some time, which sucks for them, but that is the business side of these things. And that's the tough part, to where we kind of forget that, there's still human beings trying to make a living and work and enjoy what they do and have work-life balance.
Well, and that's, I think, the real bottom line, is remembering that a lot of people who especially get into things like video games and the industry as passionate as we are, they're just as passionate about the content that they produce. They want good things to be produced by their studio. They want to enjoy what they do. And like, as consumers as well, not just as producers, but as consumers enjoy what they produce. It's just because there's so many people who want to be in that industry, there's not much incentive, I think, for employers to really look out for their employees. It's just very easy to replace people. So I'll be very curious following the story to see, for example, how many people end up getting laid off during this restructuring and stuff like that, which could directly harm unionizing efforts because of this move. And I really think that the overall gaming industry, at least from a lot of stories that have been breaking recently and stuff, there just is a very severe culture issue that needs to be addressed. And I don't know that unionizing is necessarily the best way or the only way to address it, but it's definitely one way to get at that. So, I support the efforts that they're making, the workers are making, to have a better situation for themselves.
Everyone needs some employment protection. I mean, that's the reason unions existed and exist still, even though we don't see them at the same clip as we did, yesteryear. I mean, next on the list, we got new Pokemon game coming out. I'm going to give this one to you because I always butcher the title of the game. So
really? Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Yeah. See,
there you go. I can get that word. Don't give me names.
I would add a constant in there.
People names, not my thing, but video game names, sure. Oh, sure. Pokemon Legends Arceus has released for the Nintendo Switch. Reviews are out, generally favorable, I think, for the most part. It doesn't really achieve the sort of open world design that I think a lot of people were expecting. It definitely has zones through which you play, and it has, they're larger zones. You can explore them, so it's more in that vein of things. Graphics wise, it's similar to like a Breath of the Wild kind of thing. But it has received criticism, I think, for the graphics and the quality of them, considering it's a new title release. And I think we've seen screenshots even of it compared to like Breath of the Wild, which released several years ago, and Oblivion and stuff like that, of like, just, it doesn't look the best. I think that's a fair criticism that's being leveled against it. But overall, the game system seemed like a good one. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's funny when Pokemon games get some criticism, because it's kind of a tried and true formula. This one's branching out. So it's like, okay, now this is the first open world Pokemon game, but right away we're going to bash it. And
because it's not truly open world, right? Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's also too, like, how many times have we talked about Switch graphics on here and people being too harsh? And it's like, the Switch is what it is. It's a system that's designed to basically plug and play. You can play on the move, and it's not supposed to be completely high definition, 70-inch TV on the screen per se. You can play games that way, but I think sometimes people get too hung up on graphics, and I don't know. I don't think that makes or breaks a game as much, in my opinion. It's like, okay, if I'm buying a Pokemon title, I'm buying it because I want to catch Pokemon and explore a world. I don't necessarily care how the graphics are. They can be 8 out of 10. They can be 6 out of 10. I mean, Christ. The last one I played, I think, was X and Y on the 3DS.
Really?
And,
wow.
I mean, not exactly great graphics there. It's basically just a Game Boy. It's the same thing as Red and Blue. It's just a little bit updated 3D, animation and colors. I'm not sitting there blown away like, oh my God, this mega evolution. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. No, it's Pokemon, man. It's a turn-based action game.
I don't know. I feel like I've got mixed feelings about some of the things you're saying, in the sense of like, technology is better. You're really telling me that they can't offer more visually engaging titles, because I think we see it in other games that come out. Even to the color palette, from what I've seen of screenshots of the game, seems rather muted, and not really like there's a reason for that per se. They could definitely go with something a little more splashy. you
Are
know?
we spoiled though too, to where like we hear open world and there's so many games like that, then we expect it to basically be on the page of a Breath of the Wild or even a Fallen Order, like I just talked about, or
Yes.
Red Dead Redemption, to where it's like, okay, and
Yes.
it's. But
Standards
when
have
has a
been set.
Pokemon game ever really delivered anything like that? And
Look,
this
I'm
is
not
the
saying
first time
that.
they're stepping out.
So I mean, so what? We give them credit for the effort. Like the standard has been set. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it's
just
Pokemon.
just
Yeah, that's why we're
because
buying it as
please, this
fans.
is like saying that you could take like Final Fantasies, the original graphics today, and release a game with those graphics
Oh,
today, and be like, oh, this is totally good. Actually, those probably would be fine because those are Pixar. Take like Final Fantasy VII with its
yeah.
really funky polygons and stuff like that, and be like, oh no, this is an art style that we have chosen to pursue for like whatever. No, like that's just baloney. No one would buy that. Technology
I
has
think
improved, standards
Pokemon
have
Fall.
raised. Get up to snuff.
I get it, but Pokemon's like Super Mario. Like no one's gonna sit there and like judge a Super Mario game if the graphics aren't up to snuff. Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
gonna be
I'm
a little
sitting
bit of
here
leeway.
doing it. What are you saying? I mean, I will say the game's not targeted to me though, right? Like Pokemon remains targeted to younger people. It's never been meant to be made nearly, I think, as deep as it is with EVs and training and everything else, like breeding for special moves, and
Yeah.
it's a whole, disposition. Like there is a whole depth to competitive Pokemon that I don't know that the creators ever really intended, and none of that really comes through in the games in the sense of the games are meant for kids. So
Yeah.
that's the only justification I'll take for some of this stuff is like when I talk about Star Wars with people and people criticize certain things, it's like, George Lucas has made it very clear the movies are for the kids. And if there's things that I don't like because I'm an adult with adult sensibilities, that's kind of my problem. You know what I mean? So I will maybe relax a little on some of this stuff.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Speaking of relaxing a little, though, this is I think one that's got you a little hype. Though there's esports
Oh yeah.
takeovers.
Yeah, definitely. This one's got me tickled a little bit because the social justice warrior in me comes out. ESL and by extension all the tournaments, DreamHack and everything else that they host, and a tournament platform called Faceit have been bought by a Saudi Arabia holding company. The holding company is known as the Savvy Gaming Group, which is a subdivision of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. So, it's one of those things that like the holding company has like this nice little tagline that like their mission is to drive long-term growth and development of games and esport industry worldwide. Wonderful to hear. But at the end of the day, like their holding company, they're in it to make money. They're not really there to like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that they care as much as they're going to pretend. And they belong to Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean? Like Saudi Arabia isn't known for making the most concerned about people decisions in the world. So I think there's some red flags here for me that one of the largest esports organizers has just been bought by one of the more questionable, perhaps, global economies, holding companies. I don't know how I'd phrase it exactly, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, they also purchased Newcastle United, a big football club in England. I think United is in second tier now. I don't think they're in first tier in the EPL. They were for a while. Maybe they got back. So I mean, it's not their first endeavor into high profile sports, but to your point, it's kind of pay to play in a lot of ways. You buy a team, you inject cash in soccer, especially. You basically just have your own capital to spend on players. You're not exactly playing necessarily by the rules. It's basically your deep pockets allow you to get better players. I'm not sure how it all plays out in esports. It seems that they're very much the same way. So in this sense, is that going to cause issues? But at the same token, we do know Saudi Arabia, UAE, with those deep pockets and all the money and investments in there, there's no shortage of entertainment. I mean, you talk about Formula One and F1 tracks and everything else. Like,
oh, for sure, they've been making moves all over.
That could be a positive in the sense of exposure, but yes, there are question marks then too. To how are they going to treat people, fairness.
Well,
there's still a lot of sexism in gaming already. So,
I think because for me it brings up two issues, and the first one is one. Are they like everyone's entitled to make money off of their business assets? That's not my issue, right? My issue is, are they going to be making decisions that hurt the industry in the long run that are detrimental to the industry, right? And ESL has been a very big part of esports coming to the larger world stage and being taken seriously with the events that they've organized with CS:GO, Dota, and more, that like I have concerns that they're going now how involved the holding company will be, because they are a holding company. They're basically just the money behind the business. Maybe they're not going to be so involved, and then my fears might be misplaced in that regard. But that is the fear, that they will get involved to make money and end up driving things into the ground in a certain fashion, or for short-term games, long-term losses kind of deal, right? And the second thing is, I think there's a real criticism here of image control on Saudi Arabia's part of like, hey, we're going to buy into a bunch of these different industries. Soccer, indie, you mentioned, they built a new track for them. Gaming now, of like, hey, like look at all these really nice things that we have and that we do for people and everything else, ignoring everything else that we do and try to basically, you know, here's the shiny object to distract you. Don't look at the man behind the curtain kind of deal. And, you know, let's talk about, I think there's a place to talk about maybe Saudi Arabia as a country and what they're doing, especially when they're investing in things which, you know, concern me or my interests. So I don't know.
Fair.
Doom and gloom with me all the time. I guess it is.
No, speaking of doom of gloom and concerned with my interest, flipping the table here. Minnie Mouse has a new outfit announced today. The whole public unveil will be released in March, but good old Minnie Mouse is getting rid of her bow tie, or her ribbon in her hair and bow, and the polka dot dress for a pantsuit. That yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to really spin it. I mean,
it's something weird. You got to see the pictures.
Sexy, I think pantsuit, but I think that's also too the whole thing is they're not trying to go over sexualized. Supposed to be kind of boss Minnie Mouse, but it is designed by British fashion designer Stella McCartney, so you know it's top line artist right there. I'm being super rude on this one.
Yeah, you really are. You're going in on. I mean, I'll be honest.
I think it's stupid that it's news. I really do. I hate that like this type of stuff gets so much traction. But
it's you know,
this is the quote from McCartney to CNN in a video. She goes, "Minnie has always had a special place in my heart. We share the same values, and what I love about Minnie is that she personifies happiness, self-expression, authenticity, and plus she has such great style."
Right, because
does anybody really think Minnie Mouse and all that, like, just
her
stop
style?
Just stop.
I mean, look, it's fair to say that Disney characters hold a special place in many people's hearts, and people do feel strongly about them. When I saw the pictures, though, I did not think pantsuit. I thought pajamas. I'm gonna be real honest with you. Like, I think it's like a nice looking outfit. I kind of like the blues and stuff. Like, they're definitely trending away from the like super cutesy girly Minnie that we had before, and in some ways I think that's good, and you know, not a bad thing by itself, you know, because I think we've had it's like the joke that's made in D&D, a lot of lizard people. Do you know what I'm talking about? Lizard people and boobs. Have you heard this before? Yeah. And it's like, oh, we have to like obviously or over sexualize characters or over feminize characters to convey that this is a woman, right? Like, this isn't just any lizard. This is a female lizard, or like whatever the fuck it is, gets like super feminine, super girly. So it's nice to see that there's a different expression of what femininity could be or what it means to be a woman. And it's nice to see that it's coming through Minnie. So I have no issues with a lot of the stuff that's going on here. I just don't think it's that great looking of a redesign to begin with. Like I said, they look like pajamas. It doesn't look like a suit.
I don't know. Like, I guess my hate on it and me coming in hot, it's just like, it's just silly. Like, I don't think Minnie Mouse, she's not a pop culture icon the same way anymore. I don't know. Like, it's kind of just like, it's the whole Eminem thing and people getting up in arms and that. It's kind of like, okay, cool, but like, is it really going to change anything?
Because, I mean, well, did she have any fashion though?
Well, that's my point. Like, how many times
did she have like
Minnie
one
Mouse
outfit
or Mickey Mouse or Goofy or any of those guys actually in the same outfit like all the time with all their new content? Like, back when we were kids, they kind of had the same outfit pretty much all the time. Same thing with the Muppets. But nowadays, like, there's going to be episodes with her wearing a pantsuit that doesn't look like pajamas and like showing a different type of femininity. So to me, it's like, I don't understand if we need to grandstand it when it's like, it's stuff's already happening in current content anyway and changing all those.
So are you feeling this is more virtue signaling than genuine?
Absolutely. It's Disney and bullshit. Of course it is, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure I disagree in that regard, at least. Because like you said, like no issue with the changes being made and stuff like that. Do it in the shows and everything else. I don't know that you have to do a special, like it is like a special write up, like CNN style article on Minnie Mouse and Stella McCartney, and it's this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole to do of like, oh my god, look, she's not dressed super girly. Like,
yeah, like if it was Barbie, okay, because like that's has a different place in culture, and there's pop culture history to the doll and the influence it had on, you know, young women and growing up, and even just
and
on
fashion
boys too that wanted to play with Barbies.
Yeah,
you know?
and
like,
fashion. Like Barbie reflected absolutely the fashion of her time. Like the clothes that came with her, the way you dressed her, like that was a big part of Barbie as a product. Where like Minnie, what's her fashion?
yeah,
What outfits have we seen Minnie in over the
exactly.
years to say that she's a fashion icon? Because she's been wearing the same outfit since 1987 or whatever the fuck it was. Jesus,
Yeah,
come
well, way
on.
before that, but yeah. So now it's just silly to me. It's just kind of like, well, what are we doing? But
Ah,
so
I don't know.
that's what we got today.
Yeah, so
You
on
know,
that doom and gloom
we had a
note,
pretty good spectrum, to be honest. We kind of went up and down there.
well, we
you
really
know,
did.
highs
This
and
was
lows.
an emotional ride for us, I think, all the way through here. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the somewhat questionable for sure. But
Yeah.
always, thanks for listening. If you've got any thoughts, comments, or anything that you'd like to share about this, if you think we're not being understanding enough, we're way too white for the takes we're taking, or way too male, please let us know. I'm happy to hear it because it's sometimes good to check my own privilege. And otherwise, thanks for listening, and I hope you all have a good one.